There is something every man feels, but very few have the courage to admit, and this understanding sits at the core of silent love psychology. No matter how much you try to adapt, to please, to show interest, or to prove your value, there is an invisible threshold where everything suddenly collapses. A quiet moment when a woman loses the light in her eyes, slows her replies, or places you into emotional uncertainty without warning. And the most unsettling truth is that this rarely happens because you did something wrong, but because, without realizing it, you crossed ancient codes that govern female desire long before language ever existed. Codes that operate beneath conscious awareness, codes that act before your intention even reaches her. These mechanisms are as old as humanity itself, automatic like reflexes and ruthless like natural selection. And David Buss explains them as an evolutionary filter that responds first to your resilience, your direction in life, and your internal stability, not to your charm, your words, or how much you like her. Modern men believe attraction is built through effort, kindness, and consistency, yet women respond to something far more primitive, silent, and sensitive: your ability to remain internally intact under emotional pressure. And this is where most men lose their way, because they attempt to create desire through logic, while female desire is ruled by instinct. You cannot see these codes, but they are activated every time you send an anxious message, every time you try too hard to please, every time you collapse your posture just to avoid losing an opportunity. And because you do not see them, you feel confused, frustrated, and powerless. The truth is that a woman does not react to what you do. She reacts to what you project. The entire game is psychological, energetic, and invisible. And what she feels in your presence matters more than any perfectly constructed sentence. Most men live blind to this reality, repeating the same cycle of trying to be noticed, trying to be chosen, trying to be understood, only to end up as the predictable, anxious, emotionally transparent man, while a very small group learn to operate on a different level, decoding the hidden math inside the female mind, and understanding that there is an emotional architecture that determines who she desires, who she respects, and who she ignores. These men do not compete, they do not chase, they do not beg, they become inevitable. And what is about to be revealed is that map, 3 fundamental truths of female nature so deep that once you truly see them, everything shifts. The way you speak, the way you look, the way you stand in silence, the way you read tests, provocation, and distance, until you finally understand what is happening beneath the surface. When this happens, you stop reacting to female behavior and begin controlling your presence within it. And you must understand that these are not tricks or superficial techniques, but instinctive evolutionary mechanisms that define your value before she is even aware of it, separating the forgotten man from the remembered man, the ignored man from the desired man, and the ordinary man from the inevitable man. From this point forward, you will never look at a woman the same way, and more importantly, she will never look at you the same way either. There is an almost imperceptible instant in which a woman decides who you are to her. And this judgment does not happen when you start talking, but the moment your presence enters her emotional field, before logic, before intention, before conversation, where she registers your energy, your stability, and your internal structure. Most men fail because they try to build value after they have already been classified, attempting to impress after they have already projected weakness, explaining themselves after their body has already revealed anxiety, and the game is already lost before their consciousness even participates. The anxiety to be noticed is a silent confession that destroys presence, and when you talk too much, respond too quickly, fill empty space, or justify your existence in conversation, her instinct reads it as a request for approval. A woman does not respond to words, she responds to the emotional movement behind them, and urgency feels like neediness, proving value feels like insecurity, which is why strategic silence outweighs any elaborate speech, not as mystery, but as emotional authority. According to David Buss, the female evolutionary filter operates in milliseconds, scanning for stability, self-control, and coherence, noticing breathing rhythm, micro-expressions, tension, and emotional speed. And when you react too fast, rush to be understood, or try to anticipate what she wants to hear, you reveal instability, need, and submission. Emotional neutrality is not a trick, it is the reconstruction of presence. And every second you hold your frame is read as strength, especially when you are not trying to be chosen. The man who does not compete for approval alters her emotional field completely, not intentionally, but because his energy is not aimed at pleasing. And when a woman encounters a man who stands firmly in his own identity, curiosity is triggered, and curiosity is the first stage of desire. Do not aim to be likable, aim to be integral, because your grounded opinion carries more weight than emotional flexibility used to impress. Research from the University of Rochester shows that male anxiety immediately reduces female interest, not by choice, but by instinct, which is why practicing interaction without seduction objectives trains your body into a neutral state that later becomes magnetism. First impressions are silent protocols. Posture, gaze, cadence, and spatial presence define her reading before the first sentence. A calm gaze, neutral posture, and deliberate pauses communicate security, sovereignty, and value. Every woman also tests, consciously or not, the exact point where a man breaks, not in major conflicts, but in small provocations, silences, and subtle comments, where she observes whether you collapse or remain whole. Justifying yourself, over-explaining, or trying to clean misunderstandings destroys emotional authority by signaling dependence on her judgment, while light humor or strategic silence communicates strength because it shows you have nothing to prove. Studies from Florida State University confirm that these unconscious tests measure emotional resilience because instability equals risk, and short, firm responses that refuse emotional games signal power without aggression. Imperturbability is not coldness, it is mastery over the internal world, and a man who remains intact under provocation becomes attractive because internal control always surpasses external displays. Neutral facial expression, slow, firm voice, and concise responses form a discipline that organizes emotional chaos rather than reacting to it, turning tests into portals instead of obstacles. Finally, there is one pattern that silently destroys attraction: the man who waits for her interest, her decision, her validation, and even when disguised as patience, this communicates that he is orbiting her world instead of leading his own. A woman instantly senses whether a man is reactive or directive, and no matter how kind or intelligent he is, waiting collapses his value.